Good morning. Dr. Wendenberg, Director General of BMUB, Dr. Rudiger Verwerk, Deputy Director General of BMZ, Dr. Katankamp, representative of BMBF, Mr. Michel Jarraud, Secretary General of WMO, Chair of UN Water, Dr. David Malone, Rector of United Nations University, Under Secretary General of United Nations, Dr. Sedogo, Executive Chair of WASCAL. Excellencies, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome. My name is Reza Ardakanian. I cannot believe it, how fast these 8 years passed. It was almost same days 8 years ago. I participated in the opening of UNW-DPC, and I remember that time among the speakers and panelists, State Secretary of BMZ at the end of his speech gave me a gift, and it was a piece of bread and some salt based on the tradition here, which is matched with my tradition in my home country, Iran. And I did my best during these 8 years with my colleagues to respect the thought behind this gift. I'm so honored and happy that today you have accepted our invitation to participate in this celebration of achievements for 8 years' work of UN Water Decade Program for capacity development. Many of you are aware of our detailed activities during these years, but I don't take your time too much. We have prepared a short film. It's about 13 minutes to share with you at a glance what UNW-DPC, with your support, has achieved so far. And then after that, we will listen to the statements from our respected guests. So thank you again, and I invite you to watch this short film of achievements of UNW-DPC. Thank you.
Population growth, rapid urbanization, changing climate and changing consumption and production patterns are increasing pressure on available water resources. Today's water challenges, however, cannot be solved by technical solutions alone. Capacity development, both at the individual and institutional levels, is essential for many UN member states to develop their ability to address today's and future water challenges sustainably. Given the growing demand for water and the importance of water for all aspects of human life, in 2005, the United Nations General Assembly launched the International Decade for Action, Water for Life. The purpose of the Water for Life Decade was to help achieve internationally agreed water-related goals. UN Water, the United Nations interagency coordination mechanism on all freshwater-related issues, including sanitation, was tasked with coordinating the decade. UN Water fosters greater cooperation and information sharing among the currently 31 UN Water members, which come from within, and 37 UN Water partners, which come from outside of the United Nations system. In support of the Water for Life Decade, the UN Water Decade Programme on Capacity Development, UNW-DPC, was established in 2007 in Bonn, Germany. It is hosted by the United Nations University and governed by UN Water. Capacity development is at the core of UNW-DPC's mandate. Funded by the German government through the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development and the German Federal Ministry of Education and Research, UNW-DPC strives to strengthen the capacity development activities of UN Water members and partners, supporting them in their efforts to help member states achieve the Millennium Development Goals and other international goals and commitments related to water and sanitation. UNW-DPC focuses on 4 main areas: to strengthen the capacity of UN Water to add coherence to the UN system and support UN Water governments and coordination activities, to enhance integrated approaches to transdisciplinary and institutional capacity development, to support UN Water members, partners and programs in collaborative capacity development initiatives, to promote water-related capacity development, UN Water and its activities, especially in reaching decision-makers and other key stakeholders. The initial phase of UNW-DPC's work was marked by scaling up activities of UN Water members and partners and the development of bilateral relationships. With the increased need to overcome disciplinary silos to solve the multidimensional aspects of water problems, UNW-DPC evolved towards coordinating more multilateral and long-term UN water initiatives. One example is the UN Water Activity Information System. This is an online platform to present and share information from UN Water and its members and partners within a user-friendly interface. It hosts information on more than 600 water projects, as well as 3,500 documents and learning materials related to UN Water's focus areas. Another example of UNW-DPC's activities is the initiative on drinking water loss reduction and non-revenue water management. In many parts of the world, large amounts of water that utilities produce end up as non-revenue water, including leakage, unauthorized consumption, and water distributed without being invoiced. Together with UN Habitat and its Global Water Operator Partnerships Alliance, UNW-DPC organized a series of regional training workshops to develop capacities of policymakers on water loss reduction throughout Latin America, Southeast Europe, Middle East, and North Africa, Asia, and Sub-Saharan Africa. The workshops also provided policymakers, water managers, and technicians an opportunity to exchange good practices and success stories.
We are currently, as a utility, losing about 52% of the water that we produce. Now, the challenge that we have is to see how we can drop the water loss reduction rate from 52% to an acceptable number, say about 25%.
In addition to that, there are also institutional aspects, because at this moment there is not efficient system, institutional system in place that will allow for efficient implementation on the national level or regional level of water losses reduction programs.
Capacity development for drought management has also been another important area of work for UNW-DPC. The most common strategy to deal with droughts has been to react after droughts have taken their toll. A more effective and sustainable approach for managing droughts is to deal with them proactively. To this end, UNW-DPC organized 6 regional training workshops in several drought-prone regions worldwide, bringing together a broad range of partners. The workshops aimed at increasing the capacities of policymakers to develop national drought management policies based on the philosophy of risk reduction. 170 participants from 69 countries were trained in the framework of this UN Water Initiative. Safe use of wastewater in agriculture has also been a major area of activity for UNW-DPC. In many regions of the world, wastewater is being used for agriculture.
We have many cities that are located in the arid zone area. They don't have any more waters. And they need to have the plantation and irrigation for the food to the cities. So we really need that wastewater treatment plant effluent because there is no other water in order to tap or dam it and use it for irrigation.
While wastewater is a valuable resource, it's also a source of pollution and can seriously affect the health of people and the environment. To help member states maximize the benefits of wastewater use by implementing available guidelines and applying safe practices, UNW-DPC and 6 other UN water members and partners have come together in a long-term, multi-sectorial initiative, promoting safe practices where wastewater is used in agriculture. More than 150 participants from 73 countries around the world were trained in the framework of the Safe Use of Wastewater in Agriculture project.
I think most of it is cross-sharing of experience. So far, if we live in our own silos, we feel that it's only our problem and we only have to manage it. But when you come to events like this, you come to know it's a global problem. And so a global initiative needs to be undertaken.
UNW-DPC has also used various other avenues to promote water-related capacity development activities. Besides producing more than 50 publications on water-related issues, UNW-DPC has focused on reaching out to decision-makers and other key stakeholders by establishing productive dialogues with the water community and other sectors. To this end, UNW-DPC coordinated UN Water's participation in the High-Level International Conference on Water Cooperation in Dushanbe, the UN Water stakeholder dialogues at the World Water Week in Stockholm, and events at the World Water Forums. UNW-DPC has also organized an expert meeting among UN Water members and partners. Furthermore, UNW-DPC facilitated exchanges between UN Water and the private sector. For example, the participation of UN Water at the IFAT trade fairs in Munich, one of the world's largest trade fairs on water, sewage, waste and raw materials management. UNW-DPC has also cooperated closely with the German Association for Water, Wastewater and Waste, the European Water Association, the African Water Association, and the Arab Countries Water Utilities Association. As the Water for Life decade is coming to an end, it is now time to look back at what has been accomplished. For this purpose, UNW-DPC was requested by UN Water to produce a report on the achievements during the International Decade for Action, Water for Life 2005 to 2015. This report was launched by the chair of UN Water at the UN headquarters in New York in March of 2015. Looking back at the last 10 years, the Water for Life decade truly became a decade for action.
During the decade, a number of significant milestones have been reached. Most prominently, the MDG target for safe and sustainable drinking water access. And that means that between 1990 and 2012, about 2.3 billion people gained access to maybe not always safe drinking, but improved drinking water source. And this achievement should give us all reasons for optimism.
Now, after 8 years, I am pleased to report UNW-DPC completed almost 125 activities serving UN Water members and partners, and ultimately training and developing capacities of almost 2,500 participants from 151 countries. The full report of these achievements were presented to International High-Level Conference in Dushanbe, Tajikistan during 9 to 11th of June 2015. In this conference, with participation of prime ministers, ministers, many delegations from different countries, different regions, as well as Secretary General of United Nations, UN programs and agencies and non-UN organizations. The conference was pleased with the report and also supported the declaration to establish a new decade, international decade of water for sustainable development from 2015 onward. This declaration will be presented to General Assembly of United Nations this year, and we hope that the inputs and activities of UN water programs, including UNW-DPC in Bonn, be a good example for similar activities in new decade. These achievements were based on many factors, including hostness of United Nations University, and support of federal government of Germany through different ministries, as well as a good team of colleagues and experts and professionals helping us during these 8 years.
UNW-DPC has contributed to a change in mindset towards collaborative action among UN Water members, partners and member states. This mindset of cooperation will remain essential to take on the water challenges of tomorrow.
Thank you very much. And now I would like to invite our distinguished speakers to join us in the podium for their statements, please. You all have received a package, and this package includes the UN Water Report. Was launched by Chair of UN Water in headquarters of United Nations. 8 years report of UNW-DPC, as well as a summary of, the full list and content of our publication during 8 years, including this film. Now, based on the program, I would like to invite Dr. David Malone, Rector of United Nations University, Under Secretary General of United Nations, as the host of UNW-DPC, to start his statement. Dr. Malone, please.
Thank you. Better
up to you.
Here?
Yeah.
Okay. Welcome all. Thank you very much for coming out today. And it's a great pleasure for me to be here. UNU is essentially a network of research institutions, 2 of which are located in Germany, one directed by Reza in Dresden, another by Jakob Briner here in Bonn, and Jakob is also a vice-rector of the university. We have interests in a number of scientific fields, and for many years now, water has been a major concern for us. In 2007, the support program of UN Water and the International Decade for Action were launched, and DPC came to be hosted by us here through the work of our previous director in Bonn. Now, one of the attractive things about UN Water, and there are many attractive things about UN Water, is that it is a network, and not just a network of UN member agencies and programs. There are 31 of those. But also many external actors, because the dynamism often comes from the external actors, and there are 37 of them. UN Water as a network is, in a sense, a response to the surplus of UN agencies. UN architecture has become so extensive, so complex, that virtually nobody understands it. And networks actually bring together elements of this architecture for subject-based work, and do not waste a lot of money on bureaucracy and staff. They use the existing staff, by and large, of units already in place. The network has been hosted in recent years with extraordinary dynamism and skill by Michel Jarraud to my left. We're extremely grateful to him. Earlier, one of my colleagues at UNU, Adil Zafar, chaired UN Water, and others will in the future. Again, this idea of rotation, it seems to me, amongst UN actors is a very good one. We're tremendously grateful to our German funders of these activities. None of this would have been possible. We at UNU work a lot with BMBF and BMZ, but BMUB also has been a very important partner in this venture. Again, the sort of mobilization of multiple sources of funding made the ambition of DPC possible. I want to pay tribute to Reza Ardakanyan, who has been working on this program now for many years. And in the last 3 years, he has been a free resource for DPC since the creation of his institute, Flores, in Dresden. He has been doing double duty uncomplainingly, as so many in the UN Water Network do. I'd also like to pay tribute to Bonn as a working environment. It's actually a terrific working environment. It's a highly livable city. It attracts many of the best people in the world to work here for that reason. It contains a number of tremendous think tanks, a very high-quality, low-key university, a number of UN bodies, and the mix somehow is an extremely positive one in this city. And it's something I've discovered in recent years since coming back to Bonn. And so I think for DPC, this has been a wonderful home, in fact. We all know that this is the year of the new Sustainable Development Goals. That exercise, like many UN negotiating exercises, has been somewhat dysfunctional, but aspects of the results are very good. And one of the aspects that is best is the highlighting of the importance of water. Both water quality, which we just heard about from Michel on screen, which has been improving significantly in recent years, but also water supply. When I think of water, I think of 2 countries I love. A country I grew up in, Reza's country, Iran, where water supply is probably the greatest problem the country is facing today. With a rapidly growing population and a rapidly drawn down water supplies, it is Iran's existential challenge. The other country I wanted to mention, and we saw Ravinder Kaur also speak about it in the video, is India. India created the Green Revolution through, in part, enhanced use of fertilizer, but particularly enhanced use of water. But that has come back to haunt India today. The aquifers are low, the rivers are poisoned in many cases. Prime Minister Modi, presenting his candidacy for the federal parliament of India, ran in constituency on the sacred Ganges River. And he ran in the sacred city of Varanasi. And what was his basic campaign promise? To clean up the Ganges. And it was on the basis of that promise that he was massively elected in his constituency. Water for us in countries like my own, Canada, countries like Germany, we don't give too much thought to. In countries like Iran and India, with fabulous human capital, but degraded natural capital, it is a vital concern. So UNU looks forward to continuing to contribute to the work of UN Water in whatever ways can be useful. Our research will continue to focus on aspects of it, for example, in Dresden, the integrated management of water, soil, and waste, which separately can each be thought of as problems, but in fact, when well managed together, become a powerful resource. And so we need more creative thinking about water. We shouldn't despair about water. For one thing, countries like Iran and India can't afford to despair about water, but we need intensified research, intensified action on what is today one of the most urgent problems facing humanity. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Rector. And now I would like to invite Dr. Tanja Rodiger-Verwerk, Deputy Director General from BMZ for Sustainable Development, Natural Resources, Economic Policy, and Infrastructure. I have to mention that from day one and even before official establishment of UNW-DPC, we were in contact, direct contact, and receiving many supports from colleagues in BMZ. I have to acknowledge support of Dr. Manfred Konekiewicz, former Deputy Director General, who retired, and after that, Dr. Rodiger-Verwerk, Mr. Franz Mare, and his wonderful team that is still, we are in contact, and we hope that their support also continues towards UNU as a whole. Especially, I have to advertise for UNU Flores. Dr. Rodiger-Verwerk, floor is yours.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Adakanya, and thank you for mentioning the team which is with us here today. Dr. Malrone, Mr. Giraud, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to welcome you here to commemorate the achievements of the UNW-DPC. We impressively just have seen this film which really covered the whole range of the activities. And so I'm especially pleased as the list of the achievements and outputs of the UNDPC we have just seen is indeed remarkable. So we really have to reason to celebrate. Founded in 2007 with the support of the German government, the aim of the UNDPC was to support and strengthen the capacity development activities of the more than 24 UN organizations and programs under the umbrella of the UN Water. The program fulfilled this task with great commitment and dedication. Within a short time, it became an important component for strengthening the United Nations in the water sector. I'd like to express our special gratitude to the program's longtime director, Dr. Adakanya, the host, who played a major role in this, and I would also like the UN University to host this program. We love it to have you here in Bonn, of course. But ladies and gentlemen, what we shall not forget while celebrating the achievements of the past are the challenges which lie ahead of us. How can we ensure that the importance of the water sector for social, economic, and environmental development is reflected adequately in the post-2015 development framework? To have a sustainable development goal on the water certainly must be one important milestone. But what happened after that, after the SDGs have been adopted, this is of the major importance. It will be the task of the UN Water to address in a loud voice the unfinished business, the neglected issues. Firstly, such as sanitation and wastewater management. Secondly, such as the 1 billion people who today only have access to water that is fecally contaminated. And thirdly, suggest the importance of the water sector for climate change adaptation. Currently, a multitude of organizations within the UN system is active in the water sector. Additional, several organizations and platforms outside the UN system are dealing with the issue of water as well. The landscape of stakeholders is very heterogeneous, with several organizations working successfully on single-issue topics. And the result of this high diversity is a comparatively low visibility of the water sector on the global level. This should, from my point of view, not be the model for the future. The post-2015 UN water setup needs to be more homogeneous and aligned with the results of the intergovernmental negotiations. It needs to reflect the holistic concept that underlies the proposed SDG on water. Furthermore, much depends on the monitoring framework of the global water sector. This time, the whole range of the water goal will have to be monitored. Thus, monitoring will have to go beyond access to drinking water and sanitation. A post-2015 monitoring system must produce clear, reliable messages on the progress in the water sector for the political decision makers as well as for the public. Finally, besides the financing, capacity development, both at the individual and institutional level, will be the fundamental for the realization and implementation of the post-2015 development agenda. In this, thanks to the UNW-DPC, that a lot has been achieved in this regard during the last years. There are two things. On the one hand, the spirit of these achievements, and on the other hand, the focus on capacity development as a decisive, successful factor for development has to be taken forward after 2015. German development cooperation has a long tradition in capacity development. It will continue to support its partner countries worldwide to foster the implementation of the SDG framework. Ladies and gentlemen, while the International Decade for Action Water for Life and the UN Water Decade Programme on Capacity Development come to an end this year, many of the reasons that led to their formation are still valid. They are even more valid when seen in view of the challenges that the new development agenda presents to many countries. We are confident that UN Water will utilize its role as coordinator in the UN system to voice the need for a homogeneous approach to the water challenges from 2015 onwards. We have seen that a lot can be achieved when UN Water speaks with one voice and dedicates itself to certain clearly defined goals. Such a concerted action now will have to be repeated after 2015. The achievements of the UNWDPC, I'm happy to say, may serve as one important cornerstone. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rüdiger Vorwerk, for your statement. It's very valuable comments. I'm sure that UN Water takes note of these points, and for sure there are plenty of opportunities for continuity of support of BMZ towards the activities and mandates of UN Water. In the booklet that we provided to all of you, and the program is there, also you see the list of UNW-DPC team from the very beginning. Right now it's a small team regarding the quantity, but quality still is high, 5-6 colleagues working together, but you see the names of the 30 people that from 2017 for different period they served. And I am so happy to see some of those faces coming from different corners of Germany, even from the Netherlands today, to participate and join us in this celebration, and I appreciate their work and their inputs. Now I would like to invite Dr. Ulrich Kattenkamp, Head of the Division for Resources and Sustainability at the German Federal Ministry of Education and Research, BMBF, to share with us the statement of BMBF. And also I would like to mention continued full support of this ministry towards 8 years, and especially very thankful to support of former colleagues like Mr. Grubel and Dr. Heidburn, and now Mr. Cross and Dr. Luwe and other colleagues in BMBF. Dr. Kattenkamp, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you. Dear Professor Adakanian, ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to celebrate with you today here the achievements of the United Nations Water Decade Program on Capacity Development. My name is Ulrich Kattenkamp. I'm just a beginner in the field of water research, and I'm now Head of Division Resources and Sustainability in the German Federal Ministry of Education and Research. My minister, Professor Johanna Wanka, sends her warmest and kind regards to you and to this meeting. The UN Water Decade Program on Capacity Development contributed to tackle one of the biggest global challenges of our time, ensuring availability and sustainable management of water. Just 2 weeks ago, the leading nations at the G7 summit in Schloss Elmau, Germany, stressed that the protection and efficient use of natural resources is vital for sustainable development. Think ahead, act together. This was a guiding principle of Elmau, and jointly the G7 committed to achieving a people-centered post-2015 agenda for sustainable development. And I think we all are convinced that the United Nations are the key mechanism to put this in place. The UN General Assembly is expected to agree on sustainable development goals in September this year, and within the current draft of the SDGs, water is set as an own goal. Recognizing the ultimate importance of joint action on water, the BMBF, my ministry, supported the United Nations Water Decade Program on Capacity Development since its inception in 2007 with a budget of about €3 million, thus allowing a very active program office here in Bonn. This program office in Bonn has a tremendous international outreach, as shown before, carrying out more than 120 activities with reached people from 150 countries. Now, let me put this into a wider picture of BMBF research funding strategy. We believe that research, development, and innovations are key factors to provide solutions for the most urgent problems. That's why BMBF has created a political fundament for action by a new framework program, Research for Sustainable Development, Forschung für nachhaltige Entwicklung, FONA, and FONA is now in its third phase. FONA, this framework program, bundles the most pressing topics in the form of 3 flagship initiatives for sustainability. These are green economy, city of the future, and energy transition. First, the goal of clean economy is to achieve a transition towards a sustainable development with the help of the so-called green innovations, based on an economic growth with a high degree of sustainability. Second, in Germany, already 3 of 4 inhabitants live already in cities. The trend towards urbanization continues also on a global scale. The initiative City of the Future comprises the following large subjects: the development of sustainable cities in Germany, the interaction between the cities and the surrounding countryside in dependence on demographic changes and other trends, and the development of urban centers from a global perspective. Third, finally, BMBF will fund innovations enabling the energy transition, in German Energiewende, addressing its societal, ecological and technological dimensions. To promote research and development of the necessary key technologies in the field of water research, BMBF has initiated the funding priority Sustainable Water Management, Nachhaltiges Wassermanagement, NAWAM. NAWAM focuses on the relationship between water and health, urban areas, energy, environment, and food. The latest call wave was on water reuse and desalination, and I think this has especially a high international significance. With regard to a global scale of water research, BMBF is well aware of the upcoming Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs. Therefore, the SDGs will play a remarkable role in a new funding initiative of BMBF. This initiative will focus on concepts to improve sustainable water management worldwide by combining global perspectives with local solutions. An important aspect is how local solutions can be transferred in other areas. 3 thematic fields are now under discussion: global water resources, global water demand, and global water governance. A call for proposals is planned for the second half of this year, and I think, it's my personal view, this could be also an excellent opportunity for UN institutions to participate in these future research activities. At the end of my talk, I would like to convey my sincere thanks to the involved persons at the UN Water Decade program on capacity development, and I would like to congratulate personally Professor Reza Adakania for his achievements with this program, especially for his bridging between science, policy, and, let me say, the real life or the real world, the practitioners. I wish you, dear Professor Adakanian, all the best for your work, for your future contributions in the field of water research. Now, as Director of the United Nations University Institute for Integrated Management of Material Fluxes and Resources in Dresden, what a name. Furthermore, I congratulate the entire team of the Program Office in Bonn and all those at the United Nations who helped to make this activity such a success. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kantenkamp, for your statement and for continued support of BMBF. I'm sure my colleagues in different institutes of UNU here in Germany, they follow many good lines and news that you mentioned during your statement for better cooperation. Now I would like to invite representative of BMUB, Federal Ministry of Environment, nature conservation and building BMUB here in Germany. But before giving the floor to Dr. Wendenberg, Director General of Directorate General for Water Management and Resource Conservation in the Ministry, I would like to mention that when all of us are about to establish a program, we start to convince donors to support us. And when it comes to the support, we ask for in-cash and in-kind support. And sometimes the in-kind support is not less than in-cash in terms of importance. And BMUB, among many initiatives related to UNW-DPC, is one of the main supporters. And I would like to acknowledge the initial support of Dr. Fritz Holzwald, Deputy Director General, during the time that we established the program, and his continued support until he was in the office in charge, and Mr. Thomas Stautenwert and his team. So by this, I would like to invite Dr. Wendenberg, the Director General. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Akadian, for this kindly introduction and for putting the grades on my team. Dr. Malone, Dr. Jerome, ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased and honored to speak as the third German Federal Ministry's representative after my valued colleagues, Mrs. Vorwerk and Mr. Kartenkamp. It surely is a challenge not to repeat what has already been said rightfully. Nevertheless, I do not want to appear negligent to central points. Therefore, I want to briefly underline UNW-DPC was a very good idea that my ministry was happy to engage with and support. The UNW-DPC achievements and capacity development in the water sector made a difference, and the program helped to bring the UN water family closer. Therefore, yes, it is a good occasion to celebrate and a good moment to look forward to tasks and adventures in front. Combining both, I count on a sustained impact of the established networks and achievements. In my thanks, I want to include the obvious and outstanding persons as Dr. Adakanian or the UN University as a host. But I want to explicitly extend my thanks to all involved in this program, including the invisible minions. Ladies and gentlemen, Mrs. Vorwerk already outlined the challenges lying ahead. While I'm optimistic that in September the General Assembly of the United Nations will agree on a universal sustainable development agenda, including a water goal, I also see the need to relentlessly continue our engagement in order to implement the agenda and to eventually deliver. For example, we have unfinished business, especially with regard to the MDG on sanitation. And we face growing demands due to urbanization, demographic changes, but also due to socioeconomic changes in lifestyles. And we also need to take account of climate change impacting on ecosystems and the availability of water, but also with consequences on water quality and health aspects. To be prepared to face all these aspects, we need a good mixture of scientific knowledge, technical solutions, regulatory frameworks, and last but not least, capacity development and participation. Also, here in Germany, we, for example, need to capacitate water experts when it comes to climate change impacts and adaptation, or to increase energy efficiency in water and wastewater utilities. One outstanding capacity in our complex world I would like to put up front is to see things together that closely interact. You may look at it from a water-food energy nexus perspective, but you may also just call it integrated thinking. Albert Einstein once said, "You need to make things as simple as possible, but not simpler." I would translate it into focus on the necessary, but don't ignore what's relevant to be taken into account. In that sense, I would like to profit of our being together today and advertise for a focused and bold UN Water family. Focused and bold with regard to engagement, cooperation, but also visibility. We will need a strong UN Water family to achieve our aims. One of the first test fields will be how to bring the two review process on the water, the one on the MDGs and the one on the SDGs together. Just before this event, I came across to reread the Global Water Crisis letter sent to all member states of the General Assembly and to a series of UN bodies by the President of the 63rd General Assembly, Mr. Miguel Descolo Brockman. In that brief letter, he puts very clearly in what ways coordination is weak despite the global and individual relevance of water to all development, stability, and peace. He describes the widely fractured UN when it comes to water issues, and he urges UN actors and nations to come up with proposals to meet this institutional void. To my knowledge, we have not moved much further since 2009. I'm not in the position to design a global water architecture that bundles forces and is on top of things, but I see quite some leeway for a closer one UN water family. Any proposals are highly welcome, and I'm sure that the German federal ministries will engage in upcoming discussions. I want to close with my renewed thanks for the work of the UNW-DPC program. I'm happy we had the occasion to have you here in Bonn at the UN campus. I want to also thank you for the occasions to exchange with you, and I'm looking forward to continue this dialogue. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wendenberg, for your statement. And now it's time for Chair of UN Water, but also I have to repeat this for myself to not to forget that establishing a program in any city, now Bonn, cannot happen without the continued and day-by-day support of the city, the municipality, and I would like to appreciate full support of City of Bonn from the day one, from Lord Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and also their participation in 2 days, as well as support of many other organizations. So now floor is for Mr. Michel Jarraud, Secretary General of World Meteorological Organization and Chair of UN Water, please.
Thank you. Dr. Rüdiger Vorwerk, Dr. Malone, Dr. Kattenkamp, Dr. Vandenburg, dear colleagues and friends. Guten Morgen oder vielleicht guten Nachmittag. It's certainly, for me as Chair of UN Water, a great pleasure to be here with you today. Legendary film director Orson Welles once said, well, if you want a happy ending, that depends, of course, on where you stop the story. And I'm very proud to say that both the story and the end of the Water for Life decade are indeed happy ones. Today, we are coming to celebrate achievements of the decade and this particular program. And celebrating achievements is very important, but at the same time, it's a right time to reflect on what lessons can be learned to make the foundations even stronger for the future and what we should do for the next steps. And about 10 years ago, when the UN General Assembly proclaimed the Water for Life decade as an international decade for action in recognition of the immense water challenges the world was and still is facing, and the urgent need to address them in a coordinated effort. And this included helping UN member states to meet water-related international goals and commitments, including the MDG, the Millennium Development Goals, to meet them by 2015. UN Water was tasked with coordinating the decade and to support UN Water in its implementation. The UN Water Decade Programme on Capacity Development was established in Bonn, as we know, in 2007, together with a sister programme in Spain on communication and advocacy. As it was hoped, the decade has indeed been a time for action on water and on sanitation issues. We have seen many of the decade's goals reach: the drinking water target of the MDG, an increased focus on human rights to water and sanitation, and efforts to highlight water cooperation, including international water cooperation. At the same time, UN Water itself has grown in effectiveness, in its role as the coordination mechanism which adds coherence to the UN system's activities on water and sanitation. Indeed, as you mentioned earlier, UN Water has ensured that UN was speaking with one voice, but not only speaking, acting together in a coordinated fashion on water issues. The membership of UN Water has also grown over the period, and of course you can argue that 31 members and 37 partners is a big number. Actually, it does reflect the complexity and the richness of the water issue at the international level, and I'm sure many of our member states are faced with a similar richness, diversity, and therefore complexity at the national level as well. I have no doubt that the Decade Programme on Capacity Development has contributed in a major way to this success. Not just that of the decade, but to UN Water as a whole, by increasing visibility, by increasing support to many of the UN Water projects and initiatives, and we saw many of them in the film which you showed at the beginning of this celebration. Now, at the end of the decade, UN Water is getting ready to enter a new chapter, a new story, and we hope it will also have a happy ending, although we don't know when the ending will be. And that story, that new story, is once again about helping member states, our member states, as they prepare to agree on a universal and even more ambitious new development agenda. One which we expect will include a dedicated goal on water and sanitation, striving to ensure not only improved access, universal access for all by year 2030. It is our sincere hope, actually I could even say it is our belief, that the achievements and lessons learned from the decade and from the MDG will be carried forward over the next 15 years as we aim to reduce inequalities, to reach those without access to drinking water, especially also to sanitation. The challenges before us are still huge, but we have no choice. We must tackle them in an integrated and coordinated manner, and we must work towards the happy ending of the post-2015 development agenda. So please allow me to take this opportunity on behalf of all the agencies, programs, of partners of UN Water, to say that we are very, very grateful to Germany, the city, the government, the people of Germany, all those who contributed to support the Decade program during all these years. But I also want to express my most sincere thanks to UNU, David, for hosting, supporting UN Water DPC, and my very special personal thanks to you, Reza, and all your team, all your staff, for everything you have been doing to support these major issues related to water. The hard work, the dedication of your staff has been much appreciated, and I want really to record my appreciation to them. I wish all of you all the best in your future endeavors, and I'm sure that together we shall continue our efforts to reduce the inequalities in access we see in the world today, and ultimately to reach those in the world who are the most vulnerable and most disadvantaged. So, thank you very much. Vielen Dank.
Thank you very much, Chair, for your statement and your satisfaction with the work of UNW-DPC. We all know that you represent the whole family of now almost 60 members and partners of UN Water community, and we do our best in the future to be in connection and to be supportive as a member, UNU, United Nations University. Now, colleagues, at the end of this part, I'm very pleased to share with you that we were able to have one of our beneficiaries from member state sides, from communities of researchers, Dr. Laurent Sedogo, Executive Chair of the West African Science Service Center on Climate Change and Adapted Land Use, WASCAL, former Minister of Environment and Minister of Agriculture and Water Resources and Fisheries of Burkina Faso. Here is with us from Ghana, I believe, coming, or from Burkina. I would like to invite him for his presentation as invited talk.
Good afternoon, everyone. Dr. David Malone, Rector of the United Nations University, a distinguished guest at the high panel, distinguished invitees, ladies and gentlemen. It's really a pleasure for me and a chance to be here this morning. I should confess it was not very easy for me to be at this panel and to talk to you this morning. Not because of my availability, but because I really don't know how to handle this situation. In his introduction, Dr. Reza was mentioning about me being the Executive Director of WASCAL, West African Science Service Center on Climate Change and Adapted Land Use. So for me, it was addressing something because invited by the UNU, which is a partner institution for WASCAL. It was a scientific forum for me. But finally, I forgot that I was also at the policy side as a Minister of Environment, but also for water resources. So really, I was scattered between these two issues, but I hope that I will say something relevant to you. Having said so, I would like to thank really Dr. Reza for giving me this opportunity to be here. Also to thank Professor Bogadi, who really insisted for me to come and to have this talk this morning. Dr. Liebe and all my colleagues from ZEF, UNU, with whom we are sharing a lot of things, of course. For my talk, I will try to talk about, of course, the issue of water resources in the Sahel context, and of course, from my country, Burkina Faso, which is, I think, one of the most important representative from the Sahel, being really at the central part of this Sahelian part of West Africa, where water issue have been always a big challenge for population. Of course, as you know, in West Africa, most of the population live on the rural sector from agriculture and other, let's say, rural activities, where water use is obviously the most important aspect, because rain-fed agriculture is the most important activity. So water demand is really important. But also, as you know, West Africa is one of the dynamic area in domain of population growth, very high population growth, and of course poverty, and of course a number of socio-economic problems. I just show you this this slide here to tell you from the 60s up to now, just from the natural conditions, how things are moving so fast. Because when you look at the isoettes and as they are moving down, downward, you could see how the natural conditions are very changing and degrading. From one decade to another, you could see really this shift downward. So from the 50s to the early 2000, you could see that really the West Africa has gone through an important changes in the water availability due, of course, to the decrease of natural conditions. So in this context, how to set up a reliable policy for water management. I will skip this aspect of the problems due to the degrading natural conditions to go directly to the challenges which are really before the policymakers and let's say high officials. And because of course, the limited possibilities of planning and organization in West Africa, there were a lot of problems. And I should say, because also of international cooperation, we've been able to at least try to address the issue. So, but as you could see, there are a number of limitations, let's say financial problems, ineffective management, the poorly defined objective, inadequate coordination among donors, and so on. This is what we have lived really for years, and that was not really possible for us to set up a good, let's say, a water management policy in the different countries. You could also put on top of this, let's say, modern consequences of modernization, like water pollution. Today, let's say mining is really a problem, and you could see really this impact on the, let's say, management of drinking water. So we come to the year 2000, where from the let's say Millennium Development Forum, we were able to set up the MDGs. And I should say a country like Burkina Faso set up his policy, what we call the National Program for Water Supply and Sanitation, in the year 2006, from which now we tried to define a common and global policy to come up with really a better management of water management. So we have been able to first make the state of art of the situation, what do we have really as resources, and how do we deal with it. And after the state of art, it was possible for us to set up an investment plan and to design a kind of participatory framework where we are going to bring all the actors so that they sit together and to see what they do with this resource, which is, of course, we cannot extend it. It's a unique resource. So we told to the national community, we need to sit together and to see how we are going to share and to deal with it. And this was really a very important, moment in the planning and for the management of sustainable water. targets were set up. For Burkina Faso, it was to give water to at least 5 more million people from 2006 to 2015. And I should say that being in charge of the water sector in Burkina Faso from 2008 and between 2008 and 2012, 2012, when we did a kind of monitoring of this plan, we saw that the figures were quite good, up to nearly 72% of our target was met by this time. In the sanitation sector, that was kind of poorly managed because of, at the very beginning, a very bad definition of what we call sanitation and how do we set up really a common framework to come with a global target. But in 2012, being aware of this situation, what we have done is that we brought back the sanitation problem to the communities. And we came up with what we call an integrated framework of sanitation which is supported by the leaders. Meaning that it's not only the government with donors who should bring sanitation, it's a problem of society. So we need to bring it back to the leaders of the society. This is what we have done. And I should say, like, in my hometown, a city like of nearly 10,000 people, today we are working with water, international water based in London, but we are about to declare a free defecation in this village just because people are now aware, and you can see like businessmen, like people who are involved in offices and so on, they are all engaged and give contribution. That's how we came up with a good plan to support the poorest of the poor to be able to build up sanitation infrastructure. I should say also integrated water management approach was very important for us. This because of sitting together and setting up all the tools for management and bringing the problem at the level of all the actors to help us to set up these aspects. So for the Millennium Development Goals, and now the step forward to say where we are going and how we are going to take the issue forward, of course, it is very important for us to know exactly what have been done and what do we need to do in a better way. That is why I have just highlighted a number of things here that we have seen during the implementation of the first plan. What is important for us is the issue of water development in a common, let's say, area. And the basin and watershed management is very important. That is why we think that this approach was very important for us. And of course, the promotion of irrigation, because the use of water should go directly to those who are really in need. And the most important people are, of course, people who are involved in the agricultural sector. And for development of capacity, of course, the promotion of integrated land and water management policy is very important. And this is something that we have learned during the first phase, during the Millennium Development Goals, and that we need to take forward to be able to meet the target of the SDGs. The common project on natural resources management and infrastructure to know that water is central and key issue for the development of all the sectors. So that is why it's important to bring all these sectors together and to see how we can share water to be able to share among all these actors. The transfer of power to authorities, from the state to the governing bodies of water, at basin level, at watershed level, at sub-watershed level, and even at local level. how do we organize people so that they take really the problem, the issue of water has their own problem, and how to take it forward. And binding social and economic activities together in order to meet all the targets. I've thought also about the availability and the sustainable management of water and sanitation, mobilizing surface water. Burkina Faso is well known in West Africa for mobilizing surface water. When you take the central part of Burkina, the basin of Nakabe, you have more than 1,500 small reservoirs of water that we are trying to mobilize. But today, facing the issue of climate change, is this sustainable? How do we deal with it in the context of climate change? What about groundwater? How do we do it with it? But if groundwater is polluted by mining, for instance, how do we handle the situation? All these are things that we need now to consider in the coming phase of the MDGs. I talked about, of course, environmental protection. The issue of climate change. The issue of climate change is very important because up to now in Burkina, in the Sahel, for instance, we don't know how will be the regime of rainfall. We know the change is there. In what proportion? Will it be too much? Will it be less? But what we know is the increase of extreme events. For this we know. But when you look at a country like Ghana, what happened last time, I don't know how it was 250 millimeters who came within 2 days. These are the things that we are facing today. So in Burkina in 2009, we had in 1 day 260 millimeters in 1 day. And 2 days after, all the water was gone. And it was this year, it was also a drought. And the crops have suffered from this. So these are things that we need to understand more and to take into consideration in our approach to sustainable management of water activities. Of course, human capacities. This is very important. We had a meeting in Burkina Faso with the institutions dealing with water in West Africa. A country like Togo, they told us in our ministry, we had only now 2 to 3, let's say, people really able to take into consideration water sector. All the rest of the people, they went to the private sector where they are well paid, and of course, we cannot avoid this situation. So how do we provide them with better training of people to be able to also take into consideration the water problem? Increase international cooperation and regional dialogue, of course, and I put emphasis on the basin in West Africa, Volta Basin, Niger Basin. These are the 2 key elements for which I think in the coming years, if they are strengthened, I think we will have a very high, we will make a tremendous step forward in the domain of water management in West Africa. But if they are also weak, it means that we are going to face a number of problems. I just wanted to finish with these things and to thank you once again for giving me this opportunity. I know it's not easy to address such an issue in a short time, but I hope that I could provide to you an overview of water management problems and how we are dealing with it in the context of sustainable development goal to come. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sodogo, for your intervention, your talk, and I think it is also interesting for us to know that while since decades ago capacity development is running, still we need to do so, and this is a question. Now, at the end of our celebration, I would like to just add 2 more points as concluding remarks. if I be asked as a director, founding director of this program about major impacts of this program in a very short way, I may say that we did our best to scale up activities of UN Water members and partners and add values. And these are two key points that I was asked when I was being interviewed in this building about 9 years ago when I applied for this position. I was asked to just scale up the activities, not doing something outside the mandates of UN agencies, members and partners of UN Water, and add values. And I would like to mention and report to you, especially our donors, that what we did during these 8 years, 125 activities, none of them, even a single activity, was outside the approved work plan of the program by UN Water. So we had every 3 years a work plan presented to UN Water and then approved by them. The first one from 2007 to 10, then 2010 to 13, and the very last one from 2013 till now, until end of July. And we did that because of a very professional support and procedures of United Nations University as the host. Not because I'm belonging to this university or my rector is here, but the way that UNU treated this program was exactly in a way that UN Water wanted from the day one. Not asking this program to do anything towards the UNU as just one member. We did not spend one single penny outside the work plan. And what we did during these years was exactly according to the approved work plan. And we were able to do so many things mainly because of the system of support that we received from Vice Rectorate of United Nations University in Europe. From the day one, from the time that Professor Janusz Bugardi was in charge, and then my colleague, Professor Jakub Riner. UNU-VIE has a centralized system of administration. So this program had not any separate administration team. We were receiving support for IT, for procurement, for human resources, for financing from VIE during these years, and it gave us lots of freedom, free time, and also good financial situation to spend on the activities. And the last point about my report is the impact of this program is we try to, as a small program, to monitor what we do, not just going somewhere and organizing a workshop and call it this capacity development and then coming back, developing a report and going for another activity. We did our best to stay in touch with the participants, asking them to report back when they go back home, if they're coming from university or from ministries or from NGOs, share with us what happened about the things that they learned, if they learned something. And then we try to compile those lessons learned, and by this, identifying good practices and then sharing these good practices in other events. I think this is something that you can see in our report, and we hope that UN Water can share this in the near future if there is any need to have any program. Once again, at the end of our program, I would like to thank all of you participated in this celebration, sharing with us these achievements, and especially our panelists, my rector, my chair of UN Water, and representative of the ministries. We have arranged a special and small reception, and please enjoy this time for better networking. Thank you.